Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening on our Down Ballot Forum. My name is Rita Turner Sheeran, and I am a member of WeROC. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Alex Thomas, who will be moderating our event this evening. Alex is an advocate and former candidate for the Ypsi Township Supervisor race. And he grew up in West Willow, which is in Ypsilanti Township. He continues to live there and focuses on issues of crime, housing insecurity, and poor health outcomes for residents in the area. Alex promotes civic engagement and assists residents struggling with those various issues, and is also has a radio program where he discusses issues of the community with citizens and policy experts. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I would hand it over to Alex. Thank you.
For what you did share. And yes, I am a former candidate for Ypsilanti Township Supervisor, and I love the neighborhood West Willow that I grew up in. It's the largest in Ypsilanti Township, which Ypsilanti Township is our second largest municipality. And as an advocate, I've really been focused in mental health and working with youth and housing and just the marginalized areas of Eastern Washtenaw County. So I am just so thrilled to be here, and because of in all that work, I come in contact with a lot of the folks here and a lot of the people on the panel and great organizations like WeROC. And I want to thank WeROC for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to be the moderator on such an important panel and discussion. This election this year, I don't think it's an overstatement to say that it's just almost existential for our democracy, the country that we all love, hopefully. And I think because of the gravity of it all, sometimes we can lose sight of how important the down ballot issues are. So that's why it's such an honor to be here, and I'm so thankful for WeRock to allow me to do this panel. Moderating, I'll be moderating, but our panelists, our esteemed panelists, we have three, and I'm gonna tell you about each. First, we have former county commissioner and great Reverend Ricky Jefferson, and he's a resident of Ypsilanti Township. He's also a former City of Ypsilanti council member, as well as a three-term Washtenaw County commissioner, representing District 6 for 35 years. He's helped the underserved as an associate minister of Metropolitan and St. John's Missionary Baptist Church on Monroe Street in Ypsilanti. So for 35 years, he's been a minister at Metropolitan and St. John's Missionary Baptist Church on Monroe Street in Ypsilanti. He's married to his lovely wife, Sharon, and the proud father of 5 daughters, has 21 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. He enjoys being retired from General Motors powertrain after 32 years of service, and he's also a second-generation UAW member. So we are just thrilled to have Mr. and Reverend Jefferson here tonight.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Great, you're welcome. Also, we have Judy Jackson here this evening, and we're all thrilled to have her. Judy Jackson has been a proud resident of Ypsilanti Township for over 2 decades. She's a retired information technology project manager from the Environmental Protection Agency. Judy brings a wealth of experience and dedication to her community. She actively serves on the WeRock Voting Rights Access Team and the Interfaith Council for Peace and Justice Board. Additionally, she is a valued member of the historic Palm Leaf Club of Ypsilanti. Judy is deeply passionate about empowering communities to voice their concerns and hold leaders accountable through the power of voting. So thank you so much for being here, Judy. And lastly on our panel, but certainly not least, we are proud and I'm thrilled to have Rena Bash, who has served as the Ann Arbor Township Clerk for 20 years and now also serves as the Washtenaw County Director of Elections and has for the last 3 months. Rena volunteered extensively with Voters Not Politicians for several years, serving as the statewide outreach director during the Redistricting Reform Ballot Initiative campaign. She has also been a small business owner, automotive researcher, and manager of research teams and a nonprofit board leader. She's passionate about elections and voter engagement. So thank you so much, Rena, for being here. Lucky to have you. I am going to turn it over now to Miss Judy Jackson. She's going to lead things off with a great presentation and get us started.
Okay, I'm getting ready to share my screen. Can everybody see that okay? Okay, great. Good evening. I'm Judy Jackson from WeROC and also from the Palm Leaf Club. I first want us to thank our sponsors for this event, WeROC, the Palm Leaf Club, New Beginnings Community Church of Washtenaw County, Ann Arbor Bethel AME Social Action Committee, and the Sigma Rho Graduate Chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, of which my father, Charlie Jackson, was a founding member. I also want to thank those that helped put this together, this forum, Rita Turner Sharon, Sue Hayden, Kahari Brown, and Dewan Bland, and the members of WeROC Voting Rights and Access team. We're here today to give you information about why it's important to vote. And when you vote, we want you to vote the whole ballot, especially the down ballot issues, and to educate yourself. Sorry. Why is it important to vote in all elections? As you can see here, this particular graph, I call it the graph of missed opportunities. The maize color part represents the number of registered voters, and the blue represents who cast the votes. The graph is looking at a 10-year period between 2012 and 2021. I actually did a discussion about this in 2022, and we were also talking about why it's important to vote in the midterm and not just the presidential elections. But as you can see here, a couple of things. One, there is a big difference between the amount of people who are registered to vote, which is a large amount in Washtenaw County, and those who actually cast their ballots. And you also notice down at the bottom that there are a lot of elections that happen in Washtenaw County. There's 3 to 4 elections every year. We don't really, talk about it, but there hasn't been less than 3 elections. And it's what happens sometimes in those off elections that we also need to pay attention to, those elections that are not part of the presidential general election. So if we're going to specifically talk about like down ballot issues. And what this graph represents is the number of types of down ballot issues that have been voted on during that election period of 2012 to 2021. These numbers represent all the elections. So during that period of time, there were 252 local proposals placed on ballots. There were 16 state proposals placed on ballots. There were 72 judges that were elected or re-elected, 187 school board members elected or re-elected, 68 library board members elected or re-elected, 85 school district millage increase proposals, 111 other millage increase proposals. And there are only 3 elections that had no proposals on the ballot. But let's take a subset of those. Let's just look at the presidential general elections. The ones that happen in November of 2012, 2016, 2020. In those elections, if we looked at those proposals, there were 46 local proposals that were placed on the ballots, only in those 4 general elections. 9 state proposals were placed on the ballots. 30 judges were elected or reelected. 131 school board members were elected and reelected. And the school board members is one of the few, and the library boards is one of the few that have now tried to coincide with the general elections, the presidential general elections. So you'll see that in, when I talk about the next slide. 50 library board members were elected or reelected. 10 school district millage increase proposals on those elections, and 26 other millage proposals. But on those non-presidential general elections, you had the vast number happen during the period where you're not necessarily paying attention, especially for those who are only voting in the general. $82, if you did not vote, if you only voted in the general presidential election, the November presidential election, you would have missed making decisions on 82% of the local proposals, 44% of the state proposals, 58% of judges, 30% of school board members, 26% of library board members, 88% of school district millage increase proposals, and 77% of other millage increase proposals. So those are all the things that happen because you only vote. And if you don't vote at all in elections, then that's 100% across the board, right? So we're going to take an example of a down ballot issue, just to kind of like walk through this. In 2022, Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority had a proposal on the ballot. The purpose of the proposal was to maintain and expand public transportation, including services for seniors and people with disabilities. This was a millage increase. There was already a millage in place, but it was getting ready to expire. So the new tax rate was going to be like $2.38 for every $1,000 of taxable property value. I want to bring up, it's not just the property owners that pay these particular taxes. If you're renting, those taxes are also passed along to you as well. Current rate, the current rate replaces the existing 0.7 mills. So in this particular millage, they added 1.68 new mills, so $1.68 in addition for every $1,000 of taxable property. The duration for this this ballot proposal was for 5 years, from 2024 to 2028, and there are restrictions that cannot be increased, renewed, or used for other purposes without voter approval. The revenue it expected to collect was $22,110,122.57 in the first year of 2024. The funds will go to the ride. Some tax revenues may be used by local development authorities for approved purposes. And so it was like a yes, this was like a yes or no vote. Just some benefits of that millage, with that, or at least what that transportation millage promised. In August 2023, in-person service at Ypsilanti Transit Hub. Starting in August of 2024, it was to provide more buses on the weekends, increasing all 60-minute services to 30 minutes. Earlier Saturday service and consistently longer hours of operation on both weekdays and weekend evenings. And it adds an overnight and holiday service and expand flex ride, late night service to all the city of Ypsilanti, all of Ypsilanti Township north of Textile Road. Now, let's just take a look at like the results of that particular vote. Not all elections have all precincts voting at the same time. right? There may be something that's more local to a particular precinct or a particular municipality. This particular election, because it was countywide, at this time, and I'm not sure, I think the number of precincts are different today than they were in 2021. But at that time, there were 151 precincts total, 315,405 registered voters, only 87,526 cast ballots. So this was a voter turnout of 27%, less than 30% people voted on this millage that had such a high price number. I'm not going to pay attention to the millage passed, but what I want to pay attention to is that even though there are 27.75 voter turnout, only 47% of those voters turned the ballot over to vote for this particular millage. So in effect, only 13% of the registered voters actually voted for this. So it's not just important just to vote the full ballot. Make sure that you turn over the ballot. If you're doing like straight ticket and you think like you're done because you did a straight ticket, there are nonpartisan offices that are being races that are being run, and their proposals, both on the countywide, state proposals, local municipality proposals are in the back. So make sure you turn over the back. And if you're not voting because you don't understand it, understand what you're voting for, make sure in advance that you find that out, get information about those millages, and talk to people and find out about those nonpartisan races, but make sure that you vote the full ballot. Here are just some the sources for this slide. All came from Washtenaw County election results, and you can find that information here. You can also find more information about upcoming elections in either of these two links, Vote 411, and also through the county clerk's office. And you can check to see if you're registered to vote through the state of Michigan's voter index. And that's the completion of my presentation. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Jackson, for a very informative presentation. I want to open up our forum now to different questions, because I'm sure people have them. But before we get to the audience, I have some general questions that I think people may probably do have. And any of our panelists are certainly welcome to answer. So I'm going to ask a few general questions, and then we'll give the audience an opportunity. My first question, and this is for any panelist, how would you define, what do you consider the down ballot part of the ballot? Rena, would you like to give it a
Yeah, sure. I was giving Judy a moment to chime in, but I'll go ahead and say that I think in general, when people refer to the down ballot, they are referring to anything that is at a local level. So for example, the county level or the city or the township level. So anything that is like a national race, president, senator, congressional rep, anything that's kind of at a state level. So your state senator or your state legislator, or your state school board, things like that. I think that it's all the stuff below that. So I would define down ballot as starting at the county level. So county sheriff, county prosecutor, county clerk, registrar of deeds, and then all your city, mayor, or township supervisor, township trustees, et cetera, clerk. And then, as Judy mentioned, there are just an extraordinary number of nonpartisan down ballot races, such as there's different school boards throughout the county, library boards, Washtenaw Community College, and then all of these local millages on these proposals. Those would kind of fall in the down ballot.
Definitely. Thanks. And you know, in that also, what comes to mind, judges are
Yeah.
so conscious in that nonpartisan part, but have such a huge impact on our community on the individual and collective level.
Right. And
Yeah.
Ypsilanti Township is a great example. You have, is it the circuit? I get my judge races confused, but there is it's either a circuit or a district. It is just Ypsilanti Township.
Right. I didn't. I know Ypsilanti Township at the district level. I love her. I think she's great. Judge Elaine Washington is there. I don't think she's up this year, but I could be wrong. That's the reason. You know, we should check this
Right.
out.
Oh, she's not up this year.
Yeah. There's definitely a Ipsy. There's some others. I'm moderating here. I'm not here to speculate. So I'm just okay.
This township is District 14B.
Yeah. Mr. Jefferson, I pose this question to you. Why should voters concern themselves who their clerk or who their clerk or board of county commissioner is?
Well, you have both of those offices. They have access to what goes into the clerk's office as far as funding, as far as the things in which go on the millage for millages and those things like that. And the clerk is very important because you have to have a registration, and the clerk does all of that registering and also has an office for information for those who will have want to ask questions about where to vote and those type of things. And like I said, the commission is one that deals with the budget and also what goes on for the millage. And when you deal with your commission, you're dealing with things that happen through financing that comes down from the state and the federal government. So those are very important because there's those dollars are accessible for programs and services that all of us need to have. But yeah, the clerk's office is really important. I know that they've been really championing these elections the last few years to the point to where the integrity of them have been held up pretty well. And so that is one of the most important things that the commission does is make sure that those things are in place to make sure that the integrity is intact. So
thank you. Rena, since you have so much experience as a clerk, anything you want to add to that?
Sure. Well, I think Ricky covered a lot. At the county level, the county board of commissioners, he touched on it. They do a lot. They set policy and they have big legislative oversight of all the constituent services that the county provides, and therefore they're responsible for a really big budget. Right. And so that's why you see a lot of these millage proposals coming out that pertain to various county services. And so that's why those county commissioners are so important. And just like Ricky said, the local city and township clerks are the election administrators in their communities. And so, they have other internal business function responsibilities as well, but the big one that everybody should be concerned about, and that I think our Washtenaw County clerks all across the county actually do a great job, is that elections administration. So the managing the voter registration files, hiring all the staff that work election day, and issuing the absentee ballots and managing all of those aspects of the election. So that's why those people are a really important part of our local government and our democracy.
Absolutely. And I'm moderating, but I have to add also, our county commissioners, there's such an accessible part of local government. As an advocate in the past, different commissioners have assisted myself in helping house some mental health consumers or some domestic violence survivors, just in their access with the county budget, being able to find different pools of money. And when Commissioner Jefferson was in office, it was a great example. We were able to. There was a rodent infestation in West Willow in our neighborhood, and through his work and some others, we were able to get the large garbage dispensary, the large plastic garbage cans that were able to, and I mean that was just really consequential, impactful, and just really help resolve the issue. And it was one of the times where I said, "Hey, all this works." You can contact your county commissioner, and the people can work together, and we can solve things. So, again, that's our county commissioners are crucial in operating our democracy.
Yeah,
Um,
and they're actually, again, I said that they're connected with your state and federal officials also, and that's real important because a lot of times we can't find funding locally, but we can advocate at those other two levels for the community. Yeah.
right. Thank you. Um, Another question here. There's research that talks about voter roll-off on down ballot by certain groups. One factor cited is the lack of information on races and issues that and voters don't want to make a mistake. So does any of our panelists have some suggestions on effective ways and means for voters to research candidates?
Well, I tell you, one of the things that happens is I get a lot of phone calls about candidates and down ballot issues and those type of things. So a lot of times it depends on the person. I can send them to certain websites to look up the information, such as League of Women Voters. I think it's Ballot Ready and those type of things. And also just let them know that they can call. If there's a public servant that's running as an incumbent, they can call and talk to them too. That type of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. The League of Women Voters has a website, Vote 411, the numbers. So the word vote and then the number 411.org. That's one way to find out. And then, yeah, reaching out to those candidates, especially local candidates, all very accessible. The other thing that I would recommend, if you know somebody that is already involved, ask them what their opinion is of other candidates at other levels of government. So if you already have a relationship with your county commissioner and you're curious about, the school board or the library board, ask people.
If there's a statewide proposal, another resource is Ballotpedia. They've been really good about putting the proposals out and actually monitoring what's going on in terms of the state houses and the state representatives as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd also say be careful of television ads, radio ads. They're not really good sources of information.
They're good sources of disinformation.
Yeah, correct.
And I'd suggest also some of the people with this great organization, WeROC, people that you know, and Ms. Jackson, a board member of Interfaith Council for Peace and Justice, is another great group. If you know people associated with those with WeROC or ICPJ, as that group is known, you can probably find some really useful information about them.
Yeah, endorsements. That's the word that I couldn't quite get out, Alex, that look for the groups and organizations that you respect or that you're a member of and see if they've endorsed candidates. League of Women Voters and ICPJ and other organizations also host candidate forums for local candidates. And even if you can't make it in this wonderful world of Zoom, you can often find the recording online. So for local candidate forums, I know certainly the League of Women Voters in our area and Washtenaw County is very active in trying to have forums so you can hear directly from local candidates.
Thank you, thank you. I want to ask about millages. Ms. Jackson touched on it in her and gave some really useful information in her presentation. But just as a refresher, if any of the panelists want to, what is a millage and how do they come about?
Well, as someone that can't sit here in the silence, I shall jump in. Millages are taxes, right? And so in a way, in Michigan, even though people make jokes about the length of our ballots, that we vote on everything down to the dog catcher, in Michigan, government entities can't just tax you against against your will. In Michigan, we get to vote on certain millages or taxes. And so the way they come about is that the government entity that needs money for a certain purpose, so let's say the school district needs new facilities, or to follow up with Judy's example of the AATA millage, they recognized they needed to do a lot of things. I can't remember if that was the infrastructure one where they needed new buses, they needed more routes. And so if an entity decides that they need more money, they have to actually go to the taxpayers and ask for it. So that's what a millage is. The County Board of Commissioners has 4 millages on the ballot coming up in November. A lot of local communities have millages, for example, to support police and fire services. What else? Washtenaw Intermediate School District has put a renewal for special education services, and they are all sort of based on property taxes. So it's that mills, like, so 1 mill means $1 of tax for every $1,000 of your property tax bill.
Thank you. Thank you. It seems like we're getting more millage proposals. I know it seems that. I don't know if that's factually true, but I'm curious if any of the panelists want to answer that, and if so, why are we?
I'm going to throw that one at Judy, since she was just doing all this lovely research past ballots.
I just have the results of it. I don't know what the source.
Well, some of the sources are from the time that there were a lot of state budget cutbacks, for, let's say, for mental health, public health, those type of things, transportation. And so, we've been looking for reasonable transportation authority for a while. And, those type of things have to be financed. And so they've been trying to do it at the county level as much as possible, and at the state level too. But the legislator hasn't been really helpful. So that's why there's more millages on the ballot, because there was, I can't remember the numbers, but there was significant millions of dollars that was decreased in those budgets at the state level for county services and programs.
That's really true. I think another factor is just the structure of Michigan, what's called the Headley Amendment, it dates to before I lived in Michigan. I believe it's like 3 decades old. So one of you that have lived here a lot longer can chime in if I'm incorrect. But what that does means that the government entity is constantly having to come back and ask the taxpayers to up the ante, because the way it works is that the millage, if an entity says, well, okay, we need $1 million a year to run this transportation program, or we need $1 million a year to run our fire department, and that equals 0.5 mils. If the following year the tax rate, the taxable value of the community goes up, the entity can't collect the 0.5 mils. They actually have to collect, say, a lower level of mills, something, say it's like 0.45, because they said they only needed $1 million, so you only can collect $1 million. But the reverse is not true. So let's say your community, in 2008, there was a big decline in the value of our property here in Michigan. The mills don't go up. The mills can never go higher than what was originally on that tax millage, the proposal. So it can only go down. It can never go up, and the entity can never collect more money than what they originally said they needed per year. Well, we all know that the price of everything goes up year over year, right? And so municipalities, government entities are sort of trapped by this structural problem. And so I think that's part of the reason why they have to constantly keep coming back to get more to ask the taxpayers for more, because there's no other way to get more when the cost of goods and services increases.
Is that the reason why there's like that they only do a millage for like maybe short periods of time?
That's a good point. Yep. So I think that's a great point. I never really thought about that, but that is probably why so many millages are only, say, for 5 years, because you can't predict the future. And so they say, okay, well, I think we can manage on whatever that number is, $1 million a year for 5 years. But after that, you're going to have to come back to the taxpayers. And the entities love being able to not, quote, raise taxes, to just come back for a renewal, but it's challenging if the cost of things keep going up.
Which they constantly do, as you point out. So in effect, it kind of puts a stranglehold on local government in that they're always behind, correct? Because things are, there's the nature of our economy. Inflation is a constant, and local governments cannot just structurally can't keep up unless they can manage the level of that they're behind,
right,
through a million. But
and that's something that really could and should be changed at the state level. But
so when we hear, and that is when people hear Headley and hear people talking about repealing that or getting rid of it instead, as opposed to reforming, that's the argument for it, to give our local governments more freedom just to operate in reality. Right. Thanks, Raina. Boy, I hope we have so many. Some of our questions are so much related to the clerk's office, and I guess that beckons or brings attention to how important the clerk's role is, and why people need to know who their clerk is and be informed. The voter security. What role does the clerk's office play in ensuring that voters do not face threats or any form of intimidation when attempting to cast their ballot?
Wow. Well, first, I want to take a step back and say I love talking about elections, security, and voter protections that exist in Michigan, because we are, with the passage of recent constitutional amendments, one of the best in the states. So we have outstanding security and integrity in Michigan, and it's for a couple of reasons. One, we use paper. We use paper ballots. There's a paper trail. 2, we have a lot of people involved at all different levels. 3, we have very advanced technologies, and 4, we have a lot of cross checks built into the system. People at different levels check each other's work, technology checks each other, and the people check the technology. So we really have a lot of integrity in our election system. And I know that wasn't exactly the question that you asked, but that plays into that we have passed a lot of very good voter protection and voter rights laws and aspects into our Constitution. And so the way, for example, we have no reason absentee voting. For example, we have early voting. So the local clerks are responsible for managing the voter registration rolls, for issuing absentee ballots, for maintaining order at the polls, hiring all the people that do the work, The county clerk's office is responsible for training all of those people that work the polls and making sure that they understand what the laws are and how voters are allowed to, for example, if you forget your ID, you can sign an affidavit to say that you are who you are. We have same-day voter registration. The clerks are the ones that are responsible for making sure that those same-day registrants come with the right materials and are valid to register to vote in their community. You know, they check their information, and then they make sure that they get added to the voter rolls promptly. So it's the local clerks are the first point of contact with all those voters. And then they are also making sure that all the people that work in the clerk's office, that work on election day, that they are knowledgeable on all voter rights. And that's how they can keep people from being intimidated. All the local clerks, include at the county level and the local level, take a lot of training given by the state or given by the municipal association of the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks or the Michigan Townships Association. They all give a lot of training on voter rights and voter and election processes. So I feel like we're really lucky in the state of Michigan that we have both of these things, that we really protect our voter rights and that we really protect the security and integrity of our elections.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great and informative answer to the question. You nailed it.
Yes, nailed it. Just one other thing. The voting polls themselves have rules that have to be followed by not only candidates but those who are involved with handing out literature, and the clerk makes sure that that's not a place where people are bombarded and they're protected from being, you know, just harassed, and because there's lines that are drawn as far as distance away from the polls and those type of things. Yeah, really helps out a lot at the polls because it can be chaos there.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Ricky's referring to the there's a law in Michigan that you can't campaign. You have to be 100 feet away from the door to campaign. And so all of the workers, the chairs of those precincts, all the clerks, they enforce those laws.
Yeah, and it gets so frustrating because there's so much misinformation intentionally by different organizations on a national, state level that try to undermine the people's faith in the integrity of elections. And for those of us that are really close to it and get to meet people in the clerk's office and meet people that are, you know, charged with the responsibility of maintaining that voter security. I mean, we have great confidence because we know you see the people are so passionate and take it so seriously, you know, that I mean, it's so reassuring that that's as I've gotten more civically engaged and met people like yourself, Rena, and other clerks' offices, you know, they don't play around. You know, that's, you know, that's one part. That's even prior to so much of the misinformation coming out. That was what I had so much confidence, and it was so reassuring because that was one part in all of this political stuff that you found some just really serious, informed people that, you know, took their responsibility so serious. So, you know, me personally and people I know really close to this process have a lot of faith and are very confident in our voter security. We are going to open up this our forum here to questions from the audience, and you can put them in your chat, and then and I'll read them off. Gotten one right now already. Oh, and before I do read that, I want to remind everyone, or let you know, because I don't think I told you in the beginning, we're going to have a survey that we put in the chat that we invite you to give a review and suggestions. A survey about this forum, and it's going to ask you some questions that we're really interested in your opinion in. So please take our survey that we'll put in before we conclude. But first, now I'm going to ask some questions that, again, these are from the audience, and any of our panelists are welcome to answer. First one, the 13% voter turnout rate for the 2021 ATA millage is alarming. Should Washtenaw County and municipalities within the county be more assertive in informing people about the importance of millages, proposals, and local elections? Or is this primarily the responsibility of citizens? Please explain. And while people are mulling over, I'll or Ms. Jackson, did you want to take it?
I think we all have to take our responsibilities. One of the things that does concern me when looking at that research is that a lot of so there's the issue about just not turning over the ballot. Like what makes people not turn over the ballot, or if they're reading it. A lot of the millages are not clear. And so I think some people don't know what they're voting on. Their yes, they may think that if they vote a yes, it really means a no. And so I think one of the things that can happen is like the demand for more clarity in the millage proposal language. As part of that process too. And I do think it's the onus of the voters though to do their own research and ask the questions early. So I think it's two parts. Part of it is voter responsibility, and I think part of it is like the proposal language and making sure that people understand. Let's make it easy for people to understand what they're voting for. The other issue is that sometimes, and I mentioned during the presentation that there are like up to 4 elections a year on, and a lot of these millages come on these elections where nobody is really paying attention. So that particular election was like August 22. So that was like a primary election for the midterms. So unless people voted in the primaries, they may not have even, some people don't vote in primaries, but it's important because even the primaries, they don't necessarily just have primary information on there or candidate information on there. There are millages that are put on those. There are some special elections that have millages on them too. So it's important for people to pay attention to all of the elections going out and for them to participate in that process.
Absolutely. Thanks. Very good points. Great answer. Next question. And a great question. How can we all help get out the vote November 5th? What are some ways people, if they want to help and make sure that people get out the vote, how can they do that?
Well, grab your family members, grab your friends, grab your neighbors.
Yes, talk to real people, real friends, not your Facebook friends. No, I always feel like the tail wags the dog in some cases. And so these local issues that we're all talking about, when they happen to coincide with a big presidential year, it's a real opportunity for reaching out to people who might not be interested in politics or might be disgusted with higher level politics. You could say, but look, we're voting on a mental health millage in our community, to like point out how the things at the down ballot really impact your everyday lives. If you take the bus and there's a millage that is, people are fighting because they don't want to pay more taxes to the transit authority, but you personally, see what I'm saying? And even young people still in school, if they go to WCC or they're still in high school, the people on that school board, the people on that community college board, they impact their everyday lives. And so to make the plea to new voters, younger voters, or people that are in our community, that there are things on that ballot that pertain to your life every single day. Maybe the senator or the president doesn't impact your life every single day. And so I feel like there's a real opportunity with these quote down ballot races and the fact that in Michigan we vote on everything and everybody to kind of get new people engaged in the political process. by pointing these things out to them. And again, it's talking to high schoolers, talking to people in the community.
Absolutely. I would add, as far as getting out the vote, if in your research and preparation for the election, if you find a candidate that you really like, you can get out with their team and do some door knocking, and that's a way to contact voters and encourage people. And then the suggestions that everyone else gave, you can also work within those circles with the support of that campaign that you're and those resources that campaign that you contacted
Yeah.
with. And that's
Right. Yeah, thanks for reminding us all that, Alex. That is the best way to get out the vote is actually knocking on doors and talking to real people. It's the old-fashioned thing, and it's still the most effective, not big fancy TV ads and flyers, and it's
absolutely.
actually talking to people.
Yeah. And there's opportunities at the national state. We're talking about down ballot here, but it opens it up to opportunity if you're working for a national or state candidate to get on those doors and really find out about your local community and inform people about the down ballot issues. So yeah, I would say contacting those campaigns. As far as getting out the vote, any panelists have any more suggestions?
You can go to your political office, like we have an office downtown Ypsilanti, and find ways to get in touch with voters who are in your neighborhood or in your community, and get a list of them and try to find ways to knock on their doors or contact them in different ways. It's just unfortunate we don't have a local newspaper and those type of things. We're kind of different in those days. I don't know the percentage of how people have voted as far as being able to be informed by newspapers in those days, now being informed by social media. I don't know if I believe that the numbers are down when it comes to people being informed about elections coming up and information on elections. I think the question has something in there about if the county should do more to get the word out, and there's all things cost money, right? So those type of things have to be put in the budget. You can advocate for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, all things and everything. That's
Right.
money. um, Rena, you made some good points already along this question, but there's in the chat, what compelling points would Ricky, Rena, the panelists, myself like to make to young voters about down ballot issues or races? Since I was asking there, I can throw what immediately comes to mind. I can remember as a kid, I remember Richard Headley. He ran for governor, and and I didn't like him as a kid when I saw him. And I make the point because I'm 55 years old now, and I tell a lot of young people that, people my age and up, we're making decisions and taking part in decisions that are going to affect you. We're not going to have to live with them. I mean, I'd love to, but I don't, hope I make it to 105 or 20 or whatever. But seriously, it's older voters vote more. And on these down ballot issues, we're making the decisions that are going to make the community that young people are going to have to live in. So for young people, like if you want to have a voice in your future and your kids' future, this is your opportunity now. And as you grow, you'll be that much more informed, when you're older and make decisions, when you have money and a house and everything, but it's incredibly important right now. And I believe, and someone can correct me, in some of the parties at 16, you can vote within party decisions, but then at 18 is when you can actually vote in election. So there's opportunity for very young people to start participating in our democracy. But at 18 is when you can actually vote. So I would say,
I like that. Alex, I love that point that you just made about, reminding younger voters that it's their future. Don't let a bunch of us old farts make decisions on their behalf. And I used to assist the League of Women Voters with registering high school seniors and juniors. And one of the women that would go into the high schools and go to the history class or the government class, she would actually have everybody stand up. And then she would tell, the right half of the room, you all sit down. Then she would say, well, this is how many people of your age group typically register to vote. Then she'd have the back half of the room sit down. So now only 25% of the people are standing up. And then she would maybe make a few more sit down. And so that there were only a few people standing. And then she would say, okay, this is the percentage of people your age that actually vote. Do you want these kids making your decisions for you? And really made the point to the others, like, don't let other people make your decisions for you. And again, I would, for the person asking the question, I would reiterate to young voters that there are a lot of things on the down ballot that impact their daily lives, whether it's the school board, the library board, the county prosecutor, the judges. And so if you have causes that you believe in, climate change mitigation, criminal justice reform, those things are all being decided by local elected officials, and you can have a say in that. And with those down ballot races, as we learned from Judy, because of that ballot fall off, your vote is actually worth more if you are the person that cares enough to turn over that ballot, take the time to research those races. Some of these things, like a school board race or a city council race, can be won by a few votes.
Yeah. Or one. I know.
Or one, right?
Yeah. I know of a county commissioner in the past that just won by one vote. And and then also just recently, it was much more than one, but less than 1%. Our sheriff's race was decided.
Yeah,
So
very tight.
so
Ypsilanti City Council primary, person lost by 8, the incumbent lost by 8 votes.
Yeah.
That's a quarter of a classroom of high school students.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So young folks, please get out there and tell your young folks that you're in contact with why it's so important. Is there a website to learn or have in-depth understanding of each millage that is on the ballot? Judy put some great ones in her presentation, but we can't talk about them enough. So yeah, what are some of those websites where people can get information?
I don't know if there's a website that has all the information. I went and I did my own thing by using for this particular election. I went and actually used like Microsoft's Copilot and put in like the language of the millage so that it could go back and describe it to me. And I said, make it simpler so I can understand. And in the process of doing that, and the benefits of it, in the process of doing that, it went and scraped the internet for articles about the millages. So there
great,
are
Judy. That is a
there are
great
some
tip.
ways to do it, but it's not, it should be someplace where all that information, exists. And I think it should be, something that's linked from the county election.
Well,
But
it gets a little tricky because you can't have a government entity can't use public money to advocate for or against issues that are on the ballot, right? We can't campaign. So like the county clerk's office can't link to private websites or organizations' websites that have, say a pro and con discussion. That has to be done in the private sector or the nonprofit sector.
Rena, and to that fact, or that fact, somebody asked if the fewer people that know about a proposal, is it more likely that the proposal will pass. I think, I'm not sure if Ronald meant this, but like, kind of like, okay, let's not tell people about it, and then there's more likelihood that it'll pass. But
Well,
that's not really, that can't be done because you can't promote it, correct?
okay, so you're touching on something that is tricky. So perhaps in the past, when people felt that the school boards, for example, if they needed to pass a millage, that they would purposely put it on a ballot, say in an odd year or a May election, when there's not a lot of other things on the ballot. And that way they could just have only, say, the parents who really care about the schools would know about it and would show up to vote. And so there is some of that maybe the entity thinks it's better to put their proposal to the voters, not, look at it. I understand both sides of this question. So for example, if here's the poor school board, they need to raise money. If they put their millage on this November ballot, there are, voters in the city of Ann Arbor are voting on 5 county level things, 4 city level things, and now you're going to add, a school board. And so the local entity would, their proposal might get lost, or with so many people voted, with a higher voter turnout, with a whole bunch of people that don't maybe care about the schools, you could see where maybe they would feel like they have a better chance of passing the millage at a lower turnout election when they can reach the people, the voters that really care. Is that right? Well, they're trying to pass it. So, whether it's right or wrong, having a November ballot that's pages and pages of reading is also a challenge. And I think that it gets back to another question that was posed, which is, I think Judy was talking about, like, all the legalese, like you can barely understand these millages, a regular person reading them. And so if people show up and they don't know that millages are on the ballot and they start reading this complicated legalese and they don't understand it, they're actually more likely to vote no. Like, I can't figure this out. I'm not and so it behooves organizations or government entities to make very clear ballot language so that people understand what they're voting for or against.
And if I understood Judy's
Yeah.
answer correctly, and what I love so much about it, there's some real practical steps that we're giving here. Like, if you want to get a better understanding of the millage, the questions that was here, a step, like in Judy's presentation, she gave a link to vote411.org. And
Mhm.
if you go there, you'll put your name and address in, and you can see your actual ballot. You can see your actual ballot right now if you go to Vote 411, and you'll see that millage, and you can see the millage language for it. Now, with that millage language that you have, you could copy and paste. And those of you that are familiar with Chat GPT or AI, you could pose the question, please explain this to me like a 8-year-old, or make this simpler, and it can break it down for you. And then you have the language there, and you can, even if you don't use Chat GPT or AI at all, you have the millage language, and you have time to study and get those answers. So I definitely I'd recommend going to Vote 411 and putting your information in, and you can see your actual ballot, and you can start researching that the millage and all the issues and the different candidates. So that was such a good question, and I thank the person that put that in the chat. I'm gonna go to the next one. This is a question for Ms. Bash and Mr. Jefferson. I agree with Judy that the millage and proposal language are not often user-friendly, which likely discourages voting on those issues. What can be done to require that millage and proposal language is not purposely confusing? Any suggestions are helpful. And apologies if it's a little redundant, but just
That's okay. I know that I should let Ricky answer because he has been on the Board of Commissioners, but I'm smiling because I just had a conversation with County Clerk Kestenbaum about this, that that the millages that were recently put forward are very long and wordy, and we pleaded with the Board of Commissioners to actually reduce them, mostly for keeping the ballot onto one piece of paper. Like they had originally had these long, they were writing a novella for each one of these taxes, and it wasn't easy to understand. And Larry pointed out to me, Clerk Kestenbaum pointed out to me that at the state level, ballot proposals have to be described in a 100-word summary. But there's no law in Michigan that the local proposals have to be a 100-word summary. So I personally think it would be great to advocate for a state law that would limit these ballot proposals to be a 100-word summary and require them to have, just very simple, straightforward, what does it do? What is it going to cost? How long is it going to be for, just very simple things like that. So I personally think that we need a statewide solution to this problem.
Commissioner Jefferson, it looks like you have a response. But there's a question specifically for you that's kind of related to just the previous question. So I'll ask that question and then you can respond. Mr. Jefferson, when you were on the County Board of Commission and drafting millages, is it possible to require a level of accountability and transparency within the millage language itself?
Well, yeah, it's also possible to do that because the language is put together by commissioners' ideas and thoughts, and then the attorney, the county attorney is the one that looks at it with the administration and try to reword it so that it's not so, I guess, so that it's easier to read. But as far as the accountability and the transparency, trying to write something in such a small space, it's difficult to choose what ideas need to be expressed fully to get people to understand what's going on. I mean, it's a language thing, and words, you choose them to try and define something that's real complicated as easy as possible, but there's a lot more to do because there's so much involved in that millage. Whatever millage it is things about the spending and how it's spent and how long it's going to last, and all the things that happen at the table become political also. And so accountability sometimes moves more towards the agenda of maybe a few commissioners more so than just all of the commissioners. So it's definitely a political fight sometimes because I remember the public safety CMH millage got 5 to 4 votes to be placed on the ballot. Wow. So the conversation was mainly about that language being acceptable or not acceptable, and it wasn't acceptable to four of us. So it's difficult to find that sweet spot for everybody to agree on being accountable and transparent, because there are some things that may be politically, I guess, advantage for some who are more likely to propose a millage. So you have to watch that too. So yeah, it's accountability and transparency can be there, but the political will of the people there and knowing the millage, how it's going to affect the residents and those who are real passionate about it. Like WeROC has been real passionate about that one. As I've left the commission, I've been what I would say not so much interested in those conversations, but they keep coming to me, and I know that the language was changed because of the advocacy. So that's another way to get accountability too, is go to the meetings and advocate about it.
Yeah, right. great point. Or if go to the meetings, or you can even watch online. So there is a level. There's great transparency, or yeah, it can always be improved. But yeah, there is great transparency. You can watch the county commission meetings online, and they're recorded also. And there's also YouTube channels for the different entities also. So if for people that want to know, we're fortunate in our democracy that there's so much information there. If you want to take the time and just and check it out. So I guess
But
yeah.
there's one other thing, you can also email or call your representatives to make sure that you understand things. You can ask them certain questions about the language.
Right. Right. I'm curious. I wanna, Rena, I just wanna check. Did you say no, millage proposals at the state level, they're restricted to 100 words or less, but not at
Not
the
not
local?
millage, yeah, millage, not millage proposals. At the state level, they're usually either constitutional amendments or legislative initiatives. So that in Michigan, the legislature can put a question to the voters, or voters can collect signatures on petitions to put a question to their fellow voters. Those two types of questions are not usually related to millages the way local millages are. They're usually, say, a constitutional amendment or a new law. So those petitions then have to be described in 100 words and summarized at the top of the ballot.
As a Well, just for myself as a
Yeah.
moderator and layperson, I love for local level to be restricted to 100 words or less. But I haven't given it that much thought, and I've never been in office, so I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing. Would any other panelists like to chime in? Do they think local millage proposals should be restricted to 100 words or less?
If it's 100 clear words.
Yeah, it's there's a this is an ideal that I threw out there to you all. I really, if you forgive me, I wanted to hop back to something that you were talking about, encouraging our listeners to get involved. Please realize that every single meeting of the County Board of Commissioners, every single meeting of the City Council, every single meeting of your township board, there is a public comment period. Most entities actually have two public comment periods, one at the beginning, citizen participation that you can sign up for, and then often they have a second one at the end. So if you know that if you've already talked to your county commissioner and you don't feel like you want to talk to more, you can sign up to address the whole board at
Absolutely.
their meetings.
You can go and show up in person at the county, or you can also ask a question online, and you can also send a letter, which will be read and responded to if time permits too. But it really encourage, great point, Rena, to attend public comment.
And when you attend, bring friends. That helps.
That old squeaky wheel saying, it's really true.
Okay, I have another question from the audience. Can the clerk, board of commissioner, or other offices legally create profiles of where candidates stand on certain issues and pass it on to voters? So can the clerk, board of commissioner, or other offices legally create profiles of where candidates stand on certain issues and pass it on to the voters?
No.
No, not with public dollars.
Right. That's not their job. They are elected officials. They have to, they can't use public dollars to campaign on behalf of other issues or candidates.
Okay. One of the few questions with a simple answer.
Yeah.
And all this. I want to remind everyone that we're going to put that survey in the chat, and please fill that out, and that this forum will be available to all of the people that have participated here, the video of it. So we're winding down a bit. I want to give if someone has any questions, please put them in the chat and we can get to them. while I'm letting everyone brew and think of any questions they might have, since we're talking about down ballot, I think it's really important that I really strongly encourage the people to go to that Vote 411 or at some other place and confirm where they live at and who their representatives are. I'm here in Ypsilanti Township, and it surprises me how many people don't know that they live in Ypsilanti Township. And I know even in other areas, people don't even know where they live. So by looking at that Vote 411 or in other places and finding out where and confirming where you live, you can understand who those candidates are. Like I know a lot of people in Glencoe Hills or Spice Tree, they might think they live in Ypsi, but they live in Pittsfield Township. Or
Ooh, yeah, I get those calls all the
a
time.
lot of people off MacArthur Boulevard and might think they live in Ypsi, but they live in Superior Township, in the Ann Arbor area, not just to stay on my east side. But, a lot of people might think that they live in Ann Arbor, but they live in Pittsfield or Ann Arbor Township or,
Mhm.
so
Yeah, because the mailing addresses are for those cities, just for mailing purposes, but not for districts or precincts. That type of thing. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. So, check it out. Check it out. Um, do we have any more questions? I'm not seeing any placed in the chat. I don't think anybody will mind if we not to say we're not having fun here. But
I would, Alex,
Mhm.
to follow on what your point about where people what apartment complexes they live in is then in what district that is. What would the clerk and a former officer, community elected, what would you say is a reasonable thing for governmental entities to do to increase that knowledge? Should there be, communications periodically out into the community, reminding people of what their voting district is?
I definitely would say so, and I would hope that in all the municipalities, people will they review their outreach efforts and is it working what we've done in the past? And for those individual municipalities to ask themselves, how can we do this better? What are some more creative ways? From my experience, I see so much dialogue on social media and I'm invested in that and pay attention, but I see so many of the voters aren't on there and so many people aren't. So I'm not sure exactly if which is more or less or whatever, but I know there's a disconnect. There's so much conversation. So in answer to your question, I would think that I would like the municipalities to think about both of those audiences, those people on social media and how they could make that outreach more robust, but also understand that so many that aren't on social media still aren't getting the information. So that calls for them to just be more creative and evaluate how their past outreach efforts have been. And they can look at voter turnout and see who's voting in their respective areas and use that as a guide. Do we need to do something different or something better? So yeah, that's a good question, Rita.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I mean, it's so many districts and so many precincts within districts that you could have maps drawn up in information that is sometimes put out by the townships or the cities to residents about other information and add a map to it. I don't know, but there has to be some more creative ways to help people do that, I believe, because right now, like you said, I get calls and people live in Pittsfield with the Ypsilanti address, and so if they had access to, like, we get information from the Ypsilanti Township office throughout the year. Uh, and those documents could include a map or something. Yeah.
I think that most of the communities, if they're not struggling with funding, try to do things like a good old-fashioned paper newsletter. a couple times a year at least. I know I've seen one for Pittsfield and Scioto. I think Ypsilanti too. Ann Arbor Township, we're pretty small. We still try to do a good old-fashioned paper newsletter. So that's another way to reach people. Some communities will put a little note in with utility bills or with tax bills. I know that we have an opt-in for a public notices, like little e-newsletter that goes out once a month with just sort of all the upcoming public meetings. But I will say that communication is a struggle probably for the smaller communities that surround the bigger ones. You know, Ypsilanti Township, as Ricky mentioned, second largest behind City of Ann Arbor. So they're going to have the resources and they're going to have the expectation from their constituents that they have some sort of newsletter, some sort of social media presence, some sort of communications. But the other 20 some jurisdictions throughout the county, they might not have the funding or the staff. You know, they might not actually have a person to, you know, write a newsletter or manage a social media account. So it's just it's challenging for smaller government entities, I think, to get the word out.
And many people in our audience are participate and contact our either one of the national parties. And on the local level here, and I don't want to mention any particular party, but whatever party that you're most affiliated in, locally, there's a precinct delegate. Now, the precinct delegate structure, and I don't think any of the local parties, well, I think the local parties could do a better job of educating the precinct delegates because that's a role that precinct delegates and a responsibility to let the people in their precinct know about what's going on the electoral level. But it's from having been a precinct delegate myself in the past, there's not a lot of information and clarity and there's lots of excuses, but that's what the structure is there for. That's what the structure is there for. So I would, if you're participating in any of the parties, to contact the leadership and also press your precinct delegate for information, because that's what the role is for, is that to educate the people in the individual parties and precincts. Okay. Well, remember, we have the exit survey that's in the link, and please fill that out. I want to thank the panelists for the great information, and Ms. Jackson, particularly your presentation was so informative, and that'll be available for everyone in the audience, and this along with this recording. But if we don't have any more questions, yeah, I'm going to call it an evening and just remind everyone to vote. Very important election. Very important, as they all are. But wow, I think this is the biggest in my life. So thank you, everyone.